Daf Samach, we're actually starting with the Maimah that begins on Samach Daled. The pasuk says, "Vashem holiach לפניהם יומם," that Hashem was going before the Jewish people by day. This Maimah is going to be a biaur, an explanation on the previous Maimah, where we spoke about the two types of letters corresponding to the two types of horses that Paro had. He had the male horses and female horses, and Hashem responding in kind with moving from the front of the camp to the back of the camp. So now the pasuk says that Hashem went before the camp, and when it says Hashem, it means Hashem with his heavenly court. That at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, at the time of the Exodus, Hashem went in front of the camp, but then at the time of Kriyas Yam Suf, Hashem moved to the back of the camp, meaning that the Shekhinah, the Shekhinah, which is represented by the heavenly court, was now behind the Jewish people. So we need to understand what this represents. The Shekhinah starts off in front of the Jewish people and then moves to behind the Jewish people. So like we said in the previous Maimah, there's two types of horses. There's the female horses and male horses. Female horses represent from below to above. In other words, Esrus of Lasata, awakening from below. The idea of feminine is to be within and to refine and elevate. And whereas the male horses represent Hamshacha, bringing from above down. That's Rosh Hashanah. So now the physical world, so that's like the recipient, which receives from the higher spiritual worlds, which are the giver. And so what we're aiming for is that our Esrus of the Lasata, that our yearning and excitement for Hashem, so that just like in a relationship, so when one partner in the relationship really wants the other, so that awakens the other one with more love back towards her. So similarly here, our Esrus of the Lasata awakens and Esrus of the La'ela arousal from above. Now, in terms of spheres, this refers to Malchus. Malchus has two modes. Either it can be giving over and trying to help the lower worlds, the worlds beneath it, Biyah, or Malchus can try to take in from the higher spheres. And then, so when Malchus wants to, Malchus, it really wants to be one with Hashem, and therefore it looks upward towards the higher spheres and tries to connect to the higher spheres. And then that causes the high spheres to be nimshach, to be brought down into the place of Malchus, and where the worlds where Malchus is giving energy, spiritual energy. Now, however, the Esrus of Lasata is the same mode that of our arousal from below that colors the response from above. So, for example, if our arousal is with song, so then the response is with spiritual song from above, or if our arousal, our coming up to Hashem is with bakasha, with the request and pleading, so then the response is in kind as well. So this is the idea of Yetzias Mitzrayim, of the Exodus, because Biyah, the lower worlds, is Mitzrayim, because it's the worlds of constraint and limitation where Hashem's presence is not openly revealed. And not only the physical world has limitation, but even the spiritual worlds of Bria and Yetzirah are also limited, which includes both higher Gan Eden and lower Gan Eden. On the other hand, the world of Atzilus is a world of Ein Sof. It's unlimited. It's pure godliness. And therefore, Malchus wants to elevate beyond this Biyah, where it normally gives chayas to the lower worlds, energizes the lower worlds, to elevate to Atzilus, which is beyond the parasa, beyond the curtain between Bria and Atzilus. Next paragraph, Vahine. So now, Chazal say that that when the Jewish people were exiled to Egypt, the Shekhinah went with them. Like the Pasuk says, Hashem says, I will go with them to Mitzrayim. So this represents Malchus, which is the Shekhinah, Malchus of Atzilus, the Shekhinah going down into Mitzrayim, into the worlds of Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya. But when it descends, it's not in it's not in a suitable place, and therefore it's in Golos, in exile. And all it wants is Yetzias Mitzrayim to get out of exile of Biyah, to be able to go back to its source in Atzilus, and to connect to the spheres above. That Malchus should connect to the spheres above it. And then that elicits a response from Hashem down, being mamshech his light downward, and that even impacts on that will even positively impact on the worlds of Biyah as well. So now that's the idea of the positive of Esrus Lasat awakening Esrus Ela, but Pari wanted to do the opposite. The reason he started off with the female horses in front, and then when they got to Kriyas Yamsuf swaped it to the male horses in front, is because the females represent within our capacity, the using just regular behavior for bad, and then through that, Pari wanted to bring down the male, which represents the makif, the sort of the beyond of bad. In other words, not just our speech and actions, but something, a gam that sort of encompasses us and surrounds us. Whereas what actually happened is the exact opposite. That there was holy esrus lasata, which arousal from blood, that then awakened esrus la'ela. So yeah, this is also happens in our vote every day, that we want to get out of our own personal Egypt, and that's through Shema. When in Shema, we don't just read the words, but we reflect on the idea of Shema, about how Hashem is one, and everything is there's the only real existence of Hashem. Everything's nullified before Hashem. So we have and we say first Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem is our God, meaning that Hashem comes down to get involved, to energize us and to care for us, but despite being involved in a world of multiplicity, Hashem Echad, Hashem remains one, is the only real thing. So when we think about this at length, then we'll come to a love of Hashem b'chol meidecha, with all our might. Which represents the unlimited, the best at the attempt at unlimited within human capacity, and this then connects us to the true unlimitedness, which is Hashem's light in Atzilus, which is beyond limits, and then corresponding to our efforts of rising up to Hashem. So Hashem then is mamshich to us his light, and that's in the second paragraph of Shema, where it says la'ava, which is like that there is love there, rather than the word la'ava is, the ava is normally used as a noun, but here it says a verb, but still it's the idea of a noun, that there is love there. Unlike in the first paragraph of Shema, where we're actively working on developing the love, ve'ahavta. And then so this is the love from above, which Hashem gives us, and then to the extent that then we are able to say v'nosati, we talk in first person on behalf of Hashem. We say, I will give rain, if the Jewish people do the mitzvahs. And then we end off in the third paragraph of Shema and Vayomer with Ani Hashem, that I am Hashem your God, who took you out of Egypt. which is the idea of Yetzias Mitzrayim, of getting out of Egypt, which means to us getting out of our normal limited perspective and rising up to Hashem. Okay, next paragraph, Achine. So when we rise up towards Hashem, so then that Hashem responds in kind. So that's one type of Esros D'Leila. But that Esros D'Leila, because it's a response to our Veda, although it's beyond us, but it's still limited. It's still only from within Atzilus, because the Atzilus is starting with Chachma, has a relationship. The lowest level within Atzilus, Malchus. So Malchus is what often is energizing the low worlds beyond. Then when it goes back up, looking up and trying to elevate, it connects to it what it relates to, which is up till Chachma. Malchus is often connected to speech. And when we speak, we, like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, it's not just the expressing our understanding, but the idea of how our mouth knows where to move to produce with the different sounds, that comes from Chachma. It's not something we quite get, but our mouth just automatically does it. So that's connected to the pronunciation of words is connected to Chachma, and therefore Malchus can link up all the way until Chachma, but not beyond Chachma, because there's no relationship. So from Keser, which is beyond Chachma, so there our Esros D'Lasata cannot reach. And like the pasuk says, "V'achachma me'ayin timotze," that Chachma comes from ayin, from the nothingness, which is because beyond Atzilus it's called ayin because we don't relate to it. It's like nothing, and that is the level of Keser. In terms of the body, so the brain is Chachma, Bina, and Das, and then the skull is Keser, and so it's like a crown which is above the head, but it's not part of the head. So and then every part of the body, so it still connects to the brain. The brain gives it instructions on how to move and and is aware of what every part of the body feels, etc. But what is above the head, the crown, or in some way even the skull, that doesn't relate to the rest of the body. So that's the Keser, that's the beyond, and so therefore, our Esros D'Lasata, our arousal can't reach there. It's just sometimes Keser is revealed automatically. For example, on special days like Shabbos. So this is what was achieved at Kriyas Yamsuf, at the splitting of the sea. That then there was a revelation, not just of the Esros D'Leila, which our Esros D'Lasata can reach, but an Esros D'Leila, just a gift from above, which is not even in response to what we can reach. And that's why Moshe said, Ma titzak elai, why are you crying to me? This depends, like Zohar says, on Hashem himself, on Atik, which is beyond even Atzilus. It's like the crown or the skull, and therefore our efforts can't reach there. And that's why Moshe said, Hashem's going to fight for you. Hashem yilachem lachem, v'atem tacharishon. You be quiet. In other words, this is not something that you can reach. It's just something that Hashem will give you. And that is what allowed for Kriyas Yamsuf to happen, because Kriyas Yamsuf put together the opposites, the dry land and the sea, which represents the hidden worlds, the higher spiritual worlds with our lower world. And so how could you put together these opposites? In other words, our world doesn't have the capacity for the spiritual energy of the high world. How can it fit in? Through introducing Keser. Keser is totally beyond. It's a makif. It's something which surrounds and is beyond all worlds, and therefore it's able to put together different worlds that don't normally fit together. Now this is what the pasuk means. Next paragraph, b'zehu. So this is what the pasuk means. Sham nismacha boy, that when there is the splitting of the sea, and the same thing with Mashiach, the splitting of the rivers, so then we will rejoice with Hashem. So that is at the time of the splitting of the rivers with Mashiach, and similarly with Chris Yamsov, it's a time of a gilui of Keser, revelation of Keser, and Keser includes in it two parts. It includes Ratzon and Tainug, desire and pleasure. So with a person, he has his regular way that he decides on what he wants to do or what's important to him, and then he develops feelings towards that. That's all within the regular spheres. But then there's what he wants no matter what, and he'll even if it hurts and even if it's not good for him, this is what he wants. So that's one sort of beyond level, because it's something that touches him deep within, and it's beyond logic, and it's beyond his normal interests. The other one is pleasure, especially deep pleasure, that touches the person in a way beyond his sort of, if you explain an idea to the person says, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But pleasure touches the person deeply, and the person just feels alive, and his just present and involved in the experience, enjoying. So that's pleasure is also a keser. It also relates to keser, and then the same thing with Hashem. So there's this keser energy, and which corresponds to Ratzon and Tainug. So the pleasure of mitzvahs is related to simcha, joy. Because the Torah comes from Chachma, like it says in Zayah, and the mitzvahs are instructions based on this Torah, based on Chachma. But the source of the mitzvahs is in Keser, which is beyond even Chachma. And from Keser comes 613 pathways. And the word Keser itself is the numerical value of 620, which is the 613 biblical mitzvahs together with the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs, which makes 620 pathways. And then they come down into the worlds and even into the physical world. And that's why mitzvahs are called limbs, like we explained in the Maimer the previous Maimer, because the just like a limb, you can't hold the soul, but you can hold a limb that has the soul in it. In other words, the fact that the person's alive is because of his soul. So when you move the person, you're moving his soul as well. Even though you can't directly touch the neshama, but through touching the limb, you touch the neshama. So the same thing with the mitzvahs. So we're not able perhaps to directly touch Hashem as he's beyond worlds, but the mitzvahs do that. Through doing the mitzvah, we connect Hashem as he is beyond worlds. And within the mitzvahs, some are connected to the right, chesed, others are connected to the left, gevura, discipline and restraint, and then others in the middle, like Torah. And so therefore, so when Mashiach comes, so we'll have this gili of Keser, this gili, this revelation of the beyond, the light of Hashem as it is beyond worlds, even beyond Atzilus, and therefore there'll be simcha, there'll be joy, because whenever there's revelation, together with the revelation comes joy, which is also in terms of the person, it's when he's expressed and revealed. And so therefore that will happen. Therefore we'll have this great simcha when Mashiach comes. Next paragraph. Zehu. So at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, at the time of the Exodus, there's that Hashem and Hashem, which we said at the beginning of the Maimer, refers to Hashem and is based in, which is the Shekhinah. So the Shekhinah was in front of the Jewish people. That's because the Shekhinah is Malchus, and Malchus was at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, it's getting out of boundaries, going back up to its source in Atzilus. And the Jewish people were following behind the Shekhinah. In other words, that they also were trying to leave them, both of course, the physical Mitzrayim, but also the spiritual Mitzrayim, and elevate up to Hashem, up to Atzilus. But then at the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, they rose beyond the Shekhinah, beyond where Malchus can reach. And therefore, at the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, the Shekhinah moved from in front of them to behind them, because now they're passing even higher than the Shekhinah. Like it says at the end of Az Yashir, Ad Yavar Hashem, until your people pass Hashem, they go beyond the Shekhinah, to Keser, to the Hashem's light beyond worlds. And so therefore the Shekhinah was only in the back of them, because Malchus only reaches up till Chachma of Atzilus, like we explained before. Only rare times, like at Yom Kippur and Ne'ilah, Malchus can reach Keser, but even there it was a lower level within Keser than what the Jewish people reached at Kriyas Yamsuf, and therefore Malchus was behind them. The Shekhinah was behind them. Okay, so this concludes the Maimer and explains the movement of Hashem Shekhinah from in front of them to behind them because of the great revelation at the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, and this blocked Pari's plan. Pari wanted to bring the Jewish people into the Makif of Klippa, and instead they reached the Makif of holiness, Keser, which is the Esrus of the Leila, the rouser from above, not the one that comes as a response to our rouser from below, but the Esrus of the Leila, which is beyond anything that we could reach ourselves. Okay, now we're going to learn the next Maimer, Yomam Moshe. So second Maimer for the same daf starts Yomam Moshe at the bottom of the first column of Samachay. So the pasuk says, Yomam Moshe echlo hayom. So Moshe says, eat today. So this is in the parasha of Mon, where every day the Jewish people received this manna, this food from heaven. Every day from Sunday to Thursday, they received the same portion, but then on Friday, they received a double portion. So Moshe says, eat some of it today, and then the rest will be for tomorrow. And that's what they did. And it not, on a previous occasion, someone tried to save leftovers and it became all wormy, but this time it was fine. And they kept the second portion for Shabbos. And that's the idea of Lechem Mishnah. So then on Shabbos, Moshe tells them, Ichlo hayom, eat the man today, because today is Shabbos and you're not going to, man won't fall down on Shabbos. So the question is, why didn't man fall down on Shabbos? I mean, it rains on Shabbos. And not only that, if you want to say man is something spiritual, well, Hashem has always spiritual involvement in the world on Shabbos as well. Otherwise, the world would cease to exist. Like we know that it says that there's not even a blade of grass that doesn't have a mazel, a spiritual energy from Hashem from above that's allowing it to grow and to exist. So about man, Hashem said, that I will rain down bread from heavens. And that same pasuk concludes, L'man anasenu, in order to test the Jewish people, hayelech b'seirosim lo, will they go in the ways of my Torah or not? So this is in both of these psukim about man are in our parasha b'Shalach, and the question is, why does Hashem say hayelech b'seirasi? Will he go in the ways of my Torah? Why doesn't it say will he fulfill my Torah? Why specifically this expression? And also, what is the connection between this test about man and the Torah? On test of Iyar, and then once they pass this test, the first Shabbos of the man, so then they're able to get ready for 2 weeks later was Matan Torah. And it says right here that this is a test. Based on this, Hashem will know, will they go in the ways of the Torah? What's the connection? Okay, next paragraph, Achinei. Now, Torah is made up of letters. Like it says that there are 600,000 letters in the Torah. Now, parenthetically, it doesn't say this in the Maimon, but if you count the Torah, actually there's only a little more than half of that, about 308,000 letters. But some say if you include all the nakudas and all the spaces between the letters, then it works to 600,000. But either way, certainly spiritually, there's 600,000 letters of the Torah, and they correspond to the 600,000. These letters correspond to the 600,000 neshamas. Now, all these 600,000 neshamas also divide in, each one divides into multiple neshamas as well. But so this is the letters. The Hebrew word for letters is Osius, and not that the word Osius also comes from the word Asa, to come, to bring down, because the idea of the Osius of the letters of Torah is to bring down Hashem's light from beyond the world, from Sovev into Mlma'ala, into to actually fill the worlds with that light from beyond. And that's also why, as we've been explaining throughout the last few Maimarim, that Osius, the letters are connected to a horse, because horses also take the rider where he needs to go. And so we know that the worlds are created from the nothing, something from nothing, and Hashem then shines a ray down. We might not be able to appreciate Hashem's essence, but the ray of Hashem is what enlivens worlds, while Hashem himself stays beyond, and that's the role of Malchus, which is what goes down to create and energize worlds. And that's also called Hashem's name. Even Hashem's name, it's still beyond worlds. And then there's a ray from Hashem's name that comes into worlds, like it says, "Kiniskav Shemay Levadei." We say it in Kuf Mem Ches and Tilim and in Psukim de Zimra, that Hashem's name is aloof, alone. And Haydei, his glory, a ray from Hashem, is Aletz Shemayim, is over the earth and heavens to enliven them. So a ray from Hashem's name comes in to enliven the worlds. This is unlike when a person makes something, so he has to be actively involved in it and focused on it with his mind, and not just that it happens to be coming from him, but he's actively focused on making what he's making. So whereas with Hashem, Hashem doesn't need to be involved in creation of worlds, like it says, Ani Avayin Lotion Nisiyayim, Hashem, who doesn't change. So he's not sort of nitfas, he's not like sort of stuck in worlds. And like we say in davening, that that you are the same Hashem before the world was created, and the same Hashem after the world was created, without change. So why then does Hashem allow his light to come into enliven worlds? It is because, like that Kuf Mem Ches continues, Vayarem Keren La'amai, that it's because of Hashem's care for the Jewish people, that they are Amkrova, his close nation, and they have Hashem gives them the ability to bring down Hashem's light into worlds. That's what the Gemara in Tainus means when it says, just as the world can't survive without wind, it can't survive without Bnei Yisrael. So the word for wind, ruchos, is also the word for directions. So what we also mean here is that just as the directions, that's what creates place. The world runs on time and place. It's the basic both limitations, but also that's how we can understand the world. If there's no place, then you have a whole bunch of things. Where are they? How are they? Where am I? So we've got a place, and the world needs place in order to exist. Otherwise, if there's no place, there's just Hashem. So to the Jewish people, they bring Hashem's light into this place of limitation to allow it to exist. And that is through our mitzvahs. And now it says about the clothes of the Kohen Gadol. So he had the choshen, and then there were the straps that went up. Around from the ephod from behind him, and then over his shoulder, and then there was a chain down to the choshen. So there was a stone at the top by the shoulder on each side, and each one had the names of 6 of the shvatim. So it says Shish and Mishmeisim, 6 of their names, Alev and Echas, and one of the stones. So this idea of 6 names corresponds to the 6 directions. And so that's actually also why there are 600,000 Jews, that it's 6 times 10 times 10, etc., till 600,000. And each Yid has his letter in Torah. Now, in the Song of Devorah, she spoke about Kriyas Yamsuf and said that Hashem b'tzeischa b'seir, that Hashem, when you came out of Seir, and b'tzarcha Edom, when you marched out of the fields of Edom, so the earth trembled and the heavens also dripped, also the clouds dripped water. So this is the scene of Matan Torah. And how does Matan Torah happen? How is this revelation of Hashem from beyond come down into the world through our Torah and mitzvahs? So this is in a way of Hashem, but when Hashem came out and revealed himself, it was Misayer, it was through Sayer. Sayer is also the same letters as Sar, hair. And that's like we have hair on our head. Hair, on one hand, it's connected, it's right by the head, the highest part of the body, and it's even beyond the skull and above the skull. On the other hand, when you cut hair, it doesn't hurt. Why? Because it only has a limited chayas. So hair represents coming from somewhere with very deep spiritual energy, the life force of the person, the head, but then through a tzimtzum, through a contraction, it only has a limited amount of energy, of light. And that's how the Torah is given, and Hashem brings his light from beyond through this hair, through this tzimtzum into the world. Next paragraph, achine. But the malachim, they also wanted the Torah. They said, place your glory on the heavens. But Hashem gave it to the Jewish people instead. And this was after because they had got, of all the experiences they had gone through the slavery and servitude of Egypt, that this was not just a physical slavery, but also about iskafia, about subduing the sitra achra, the klippa. Now, every day we say again, we thank Hashem for giving us the Torah, and every day again, we have to picture ourselves as if we're leaving Egypt that day. And that's the idea of davening each day, that every day we need to subdue the Mitzrayim, the Klippa, and subdue the rots and the desires of our Nefesh Bahamis, that instead of what it wants, its pleasures instead will, our excitement and our pleasure will be in Hashem, Lavas Hashem. And this is the meaning. The Pasuk in which says that Achalti Yari, that I ate my sugarcane in Davshi with my honey, and this is actually in the same Pasuk as Basiligani. And Hashem is saying, I've eaten my sweet foods, which represents the neshamas. And when just like with when a person eats, so there's the good part which stays in the body and energizes the body, and then the bad part is sent out. So when Hashem, so to speak, eats the neshama, the neshama has to be refined, and this refinement happens through davening. Like the pasuk says, "Mitzar lekesef," the refined silver, and then that same pasuk concludes in Mishlei, "V'ish lefi mahalei," and each person according to his praise. So in other words, through praising Hashem in davening, that's what refines us, so that we can rise with love of Hashem, and then the negative parts get pushed out. And that is when we say in Shemoneh Esrei Slach Lanu, we ask Hashem to forgive us because we have sinned. And then after Shemoneh Esrei Imtachnu Nashamnu, so that pushes out the bad parts, so that the neshama is left all, and ourselves, we are left all with the good, and that becomes included in Hashem, like Hashem consuming it. Okay, so either way, this refinement happens through Yetzias Mitzrayim that we try to accomplish each day, and that's something that we have over the Malachim. They don't refine because they're already all holy. They don't have the negative and positive part that have to be separated, and the negative subdued and forced to help with the godliness, etc. So therefore, they're not the right ones for the Torah. Next paragraph, Achina Yesh. So although we just said, we spoke about Hashem like eating us, so to speak, consuming us, and with eating there's this refinements that we have to get ready for this with lifting up the good part and pushing out what can't be elevated. But there's two types of eating. There's weekday eating and Shabbos eating. And similarly, there's two types of avodah with eating. There's the eating of the regular person and eating of the tzaddik. So the weekday is like the eating of the regular person. Shabbos eating is like eating of the tzaddik, like the pasuk says, tzaddik that tzaddik eats for the satisfaction of his soul, but the stomach of the rasha is lacking. So what does this pasuk mean? That on weekdays, when we eat, it's all about iskafia and eating only for holy purposes and pushing down the refining whatever we can of the food up to Hashem, which is the avodah of biurim, and then pushing down whatever can't be. That's part of biur, to lift up what we can and push down what we can't. Whereas on Shabbos, there's no bad. We're just one with Hashem. So that's the meaning of this pasuk, as we'll explain further later. So bet and Risham Techsar is the stomach of the rasha is lacking. So this is about the lacking, the minusing through biurim. That some of it becomes part of that when we eat, some of it gives us energy, and the other half is pushed out. And therefore there's some waste, which is techsa, what is minus, whereas on Shabbos, it's the seva nafshe, it's for the satisfaction of the soul, because it's pure pleasure in Hashem. And that's why we say at the Suda of Shabbos, we say that Dahi Sudasa Atik HaKadisha, this is the meal of Atik, which Atik represents godly pleasure. And then therefore there's no waste and there's no need for refinement. So similarly, and just like with eating, there's this difference also with davening, that davening in weekdays, the avodah is to refine ourselves and try to lift whatever we can up to Hashem and push out the negative, the character flaws. Now, whereas on Shabbos, it's just pure bliss in Hashem. And that is because on Shabbos, the whole world operates in a different way. Because on weekdays, Hashem is involved in the physical, and it's like when a person works, so they're not at rest. They have to be focused outward. Whereas when the person stops working, he rests, then he can go back into himself, go back into his inner self. And so throughout the week, Hashem is so to speak working, which is about going out into the physical. Whereas on Shabbos, Hashem elevates. And the world also elevates to so to speak Hashem's inner self. So, and that's why it says about Shabbos that it says Shabbos la Hashem. It's Shabbos for Hashem. It's the Hashem's day of rest and going back into Himself, because in order to allow the world to have its to refine the world and make it holy. So it says, like we quoted before, Hashem goes out through Seir, through Tzimtzum. But then on Shabbos, he goes back into himself. Then we can just have pleasure with Hashem. And it says Al Havaya, on Havaya, meaning beyond Havaya as creator, by connecting to Hashem as he is for himself. And that's why we don't say Tachnun or Slachlon on Shabbos, because it's not about refining. There's nothing to refine. Everything, the only existence is Hashem, and pure holiness, pure bliss. Next paragraph, V'hine Lias. So this difference between Shabbos and weekdays was most manifest with the Mon. It says about the Mon that there was a layer of dew, and then the Mon on top. So the connection here is because dew never stops. And that dew represents the Esrus de La'ela, which is beyond our efforts. And then this Esrus de La'ela, this gift from Hashem, which is not related to our efforts, just beyond. In other words, with rain, the moisture that it evaporates and goes up, and then that causes the heaviness of the clouds, and then it falls down. So it's based on Esrus de La'sata, based on an arousal from below, causes the arousal from above. Whereas with dew, it's always there. It's not dependent on what's going on down on earth. So this is pure Esrus de La'ela. It allows us, it inspires us, gives us the ability to have our Esrus de La'sata. And then with Mon, it says that the Mon comes every day, L'man anasen, in order to test us, hayelech, will we go in the ways of the Torah. And the test is, will we leave over extra Mon for the next day? Because if we have enough food for today and we're thinking about what will I eat tomorrow, so then that's a lack of faith. It's as the exact expression is, miktane amana, it's small faith. But instead, what we want is that not to have a lack of emunah, but hayelech b'serasi, will we go in the ways of Hashem's Torah? So this idea of halicha, going, is traveling in two directions, from below to above and from above to below, in the ways of Hashem's Torah. The Torah is made up of letters, and those letters are what bring Hashem's light and Hashem's energy into the world. So just like we have the Torah, which is Hashem's instructions for the world, and then we also have other letters of tefillah, which are going up to Hashem, which, like we said, corresponds to the male and female horses. And like in Sefer Yetzirah, it talks about how different letters have different spiritual functions. There's within the 22 letters, Sefer Yetzirah says there's 3 letters that are called the imos, the mothers, and that's Aleph, Mem, and Shin, core letters. Then there's 7 letters which are called the double letters, which are Beged, Kafras, Beis, Gimel, Daled, Kafei, Reish, and Saf, which each of them you can have 2 forms of the letter, like Beis and Beis, Gimel, and perhaps the Taimani Gimel, and then Daled and Thaled, whatever, and then Kaf and Chaf, Pei and Fei, Reish. Also, you have 2 ways to say Re and Re, and Taf and Saf. But either way, so that's the second, that represents a certain style of spiritual energy from those letters. And then the regular letters, the last 12 letters, are the regular letters. So similarly, we have letters bringing Hashem's light down and bringing us up. And therefore it says that the Mon should be each day, because every day Torah has to be new. And every day the world needs to be rejuvenated, get its spiritual energy again. Whereas for Hashem is unchanged. Like it says, Ani Havai Lo Shonisi, that I am Hashem, it doesn't change. And therefore it says in Mishlei, that the eyes of man will never be satiated. And that's because Hashem is blig vum, we can always reach higher. Next paragraph, Amon. So this is the content of the idea of Mon spiritually, that Mon would fall on top of the Tal, the dew, which dew represents Hashem's unchanging self, because dew is every day, and therefore throughout the week they got the man each day. But then for Shabbos it says hayom lo simtzu b'sadeh, that today you won't find man in the field, because sadeh refers to this world and with its limits of place. And on Shabbos it's a day of Hashem, where Hashem can go back, so to speak, into himself. And it's just a day of bliss and pleasure of Hashem, not a day of going out into creating the world and worlds. And it's not dependent on on arousal on efforts from below. Now, like it says that yes, Hashem panav elecha, Hashem to lift that Hashem favors us, but it uses the word panav, which his face, which means Hashem's pnimius. So when Hashem favors us with his pnimius, then so when in this pnimius mode, which is how our state on Shabbos, and how Hashem is on Shabbos, so then there's no need for biurim, because everything is perfect and everything is holy. But on weekdays, so yes, there's tal on weekdays as well, but it says, when it talks about tal on weekdays, it says bredas atal laila, when the dew comes down at night. So this represents the dew. Yes, there's a dew which is from Hashem's unlimited self, but it's coming down through its symptom, like the pasuk says in Shmerling kvutzai sayrasisei laila, that my locks of hair are the drops of night. So in other words, that the tal comes down through hair, which represents a limited amount of energy, and that's why, like we said, you can cut it and it doesn't hurt. Whereas on Shabbos, it's Hashem's in a chayes without its symptom. And therefore the pasuk about dew on Shabbos says vatal shechvas hatal, that the layer of dew went up. And therefore the man didn't fall on Shabbos. Why? Because man is more in touch with Hashem's rest than other types of hamshacha, other types of spiritual gifts and giving over. All other hashpahs, all other giving the energy, spiritual energy that Hashem gives over to the world, so they are all chitzonius, they're external, and therefore there's no change. Whereas man, because man represents pnimius, a hashpah pnimius, in hashpah, and on Shabbos there's no symptom, it's just Hashem as he is for himself. The only way that this hashpah pnimis of man can come down is through symptom, like we said, that it comes down resisei laila, like the droplets of night, an idea of hair, it comes down through symptom. So therefore, on Shabbos, the man wouldn't come down at all, because it's pnimis, and pnimis can't come without this being extended outward, which doesn't happen on Shabbos. So now we've answered why specifically man didn't come down, whereas other things did come down, because man is the pnimis, and how the eating of the man on Shabbos was a different eating to the rest of the week, and therefore it says eat it today. Only on Shabbos do we eat the man as just the tainug in Hashem, pleasure in Hashem, beyond birurim, and that's why the eating of the man and in general Suda on Shabbos and the tefillas of Shabbos are just bliss with Hashem, whereas during the week it's about birurim, about refinement, and that's also the test for Torah, which Torah is the letters which of Hamshach and Allah, bring Hashem's light down to us and us going up to Hashem. And the man is which is this idea of hashpah pnimis is just ready for Torah, that man, which is man, is this hashpah pnimis, is the barometer for how we're connecting up to Hashem and Hashem coming down to us.